Whether you become a Netflix or a Blockbuster depends on your ability to recognise the sometimes uncomfortable fact that you need to stay ahead of change. At Zurich, we want to help you engage and embrace change, and that's why we've partnered with AdviserVoice to produce the FinTech Labs, which will bring you a broad array of financial technological innovation, all geared to help you and your businesses. We hope you enjoy the series.
Hello, I'm Ray Griffin and I'm one of the founding directors of AdviserVoice, and welcome to our episode number 5 of the AdviserVoice Zurich FinTech Lab series. And this week we're talking with Arthur Naumides from the Domacom Fund. And Arthur, it's a pretty revolutionary investment that you've got with the Domacom Fund. Can you give us a bit of an idea of how it operates?
Morning, Ray, and thanks for having me here. Yeah, Domacom is set out to solve a problem for advisors by fractionalising property. In other words, breaking property down into bite-sized chunks, but to do so in a regulatory structure that you can use. And so what we've chosen is a registered managed investment scheme, which means that we're authorised for retail, not just wholesale investors. To that, we've added a secondary market capability. So we've got in our FSL make a market permission. So we've created something very much like equities bid offer market depth. And the other little bit that we've added is the secret sauce is the concept of book build or syndication, otherwise known in the public sense crowdfunding. So we've blended all those to create a solution for advisors to be able to offer for the first time real property for your clients as part of your asset allocation. And in fact, belief is that property should form a part of the asset allocation of all your clients. In fact, should be an anchor class because it has a very low volatility compared to equities and other instruments.
So Arthur, just looking at the book build process, I noticed that you can also, investors can identify a property through their advisor through Domacom, an existing property that's available to invest in. Mm-hmm. But as you say, they can also become part of a book build if they identify a property which they would like to buy and be a part contributor to that. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, Ray. Basically, the properties can be selected either the financial advisor engages a property buyer's advocate to source, appropriate properties for their clients, or alternatively, your clients themselves may say, "Oh, I like that property on the corner, and I believe that I can supply 30% of the capital. Would it be of interest to others?" And you can create a book for that property. And one of the unique features of Domacom compared to global crowdfunding sites is that we're the only one paid by the investor, which means that through our platform you can buy any property, developments, existing resi, commercial, industrial, rural, whereas other crowdfunding sites are paid for by the developer, so they can only do off the plans or developments.
So let's just bring this across to the panel now, Arthur, and see how they might be able to build this into their portfolio. Virginia, if we look at property in portfolios over the history of financial planning in Australia, it's largely been involved in either unlisted property trusts and I guess to more recently there's been a real focus on the listed sector. How could you see this perhaps fitting in the property component of portfolios in your practice?
It's interesting when I look back to how portfolios used to be constructed when advisors used to do it very independently. Property formed a large part of that, and they almost saw that as a defensive asset. It was almost classed that way, whereas that it swung against that, the tide, I guess, and people have got a bit nervous about property funds, and there's been less of it, I would have noticed, in clients' portfolios. I probably see what you're doing as a little bit sophisticated maybe for the average older client, but I certainly see a need for that with perhaps a younger client group.
So Ray, you work with the Gen X type clients, very much a focus on that type of client. This is something which really perhaps could resonate with your type of, the clients that you work with?
Most certainly. I don't think it's any secret that affordability of property in Australia over the last, say, 10 years has become increasingly more difficult to get your foot in the door. So if there's a facility to have a scaled entry into the property market, then yeah, absolutely that would be of interest.
And Therese, you spend time working with advisors and you be hearing the stories that they've got, the troubles and woes of portfolio construction from time to time. Are you hearing the sort of calls for this type of, I guess, a revolutionary type product in the marketplace? Is that the sort of thing you're hearing?
Look, I'm hearing advisors wanting something different to the property funds and what's available through other fund managers at the moment. Typical listed property trust react very similarly to equities. They're basically another stock, and they're not reacting in a traditional property as traditional property would. So
yeah, they behave differently, don't they?
Behave very differently. So yeah.
And Dane, your funds management type activities, where do you see this potentially sitting, or the types of investors that you're working with?
Well, I think on that point, Ray, that you just mentioned regarding volatility, I think that's partly due to the illiquidity in residential property. I think, if anything, what Domicom's doing, it actually creates a more liquid market. And in times of heightened volatility, there are potential, from a fund manager perspective, potential to take advantage of that volatility. But also, we don't do a huge amount of direct property investment, partly because of the large investment size that you need to be able to get access to those sorts of opportunities. So this certainly opens up that market.
So who's got some questions for Arthur?
I've got two questions off the top of my head. In respect to the title, is the title held by the MIS or is it held by the underlying fractional owners?
The title is held by the responsible entity or the custodian, which is a perpetual corporate trustee, because it is an asset of the MIS. So what we've done is created a very special type of property trust called a segregated property trust. So we create a sub-fund for every individual property, and we've segregated the entitlements so there's no risk of any contamination of performance or anything else from one sub-fund to the other. Because that's the thing you get with Domicom, is you get what's on the tin. You get precisely the return of the specific asset, and that's one of the needs of your investors, which is to, there's 10 people in the room, there's 10 opinions. And our view is that if you don't provide direct property solutions to your clients, someone will, and that someone's usually a property spruiker who invites your clients to the Hilton on a Thursday night, and a few drinks later, they own proud over off a plane in your poon.
I've
got a question around, sorry.
No, that's all right.
I was going to ask around the practicality. So if I've got 5 clients that all say have $100,000 interested in investing in property, I use a buyer's agent, we identify an appropriate property with capital growth, and we're happy with the yields and all the rest of it. What's the process from there? Where does Domicom step in?
Basically, for any of your clients or yourselves to participate, you first need to become members of the fund. So your clients would need to fill an application form and deposit the money. And we have an internal cash pool with ANZ, so it's an ANZ bank account with an extra 0.58% above the overnight cash rate. So it's actually more attractive than what you get in your normal rates. And once it's finished its 2-week cooling off period, you then simply start a book or syndicate by pick your first client. You say, I think we're going to buy this property for $500,000, and I want to start it with a $100,000 bid at $500,000, and that starts the book. And then you do that for each client, and then progressively you complete the book. But once you get to 30% of the target book price, Domicom begins its own independent due diligence. So 30% we engage a conveyancing lawyer to check the contract title of sale, 50% we do valuations, inspections, building inspections as well. And 100% we lock the book, offer all investors a supplementary PDS, which is a formal offer to subscribe for units on the subfund if we are successful. If everyone says yes, it's now binding, and we then appoint a buyer's advocate and we buy the property.
How does Domicom sit within our compliance framework and on our approved product list?
That's what's unique about us compared to all the other property sort of crowdfunding type platforms, is that it took us 4 extra years than everyone else, but we've created a registered managed investment scheme, and we got approved beginning of last year. Then it took us all year to get our research coverage. So SQM is giving us a favourable rating, and just refreshed that yesterday. So, and that's enabled us to get on approved product list.
So thanks very much, Arthur. It's been great to hear how the Domicom Fund works, and of course we'll be taking more questions from the panel when we move to the next series, once they've had a chance to explore the system a lot more, and we look forward to those questions when they arise. So thanks very much, everyone.
Thanks, Ray, and I look forward to your questions.